A moving truck was blocking my driveway. Not mine, not a friend's. It belonged to my mother, the woman the entire cul-de-sac secretly nicknamed HOA Karen for her clipboard-wielding reign of terror, and a man who had struck me when I was 16. I made the rule crystal clear. Short stays only. 1 week tops. But as the movers hauled box after box onto my pristine concrete, he shot me that same old smirk, the one that still made my stomach twist. This was my house. My name on the deed. I wasn't that terrified girl anymore. My name is Lena Carter, and this 2-story craftsman in our quiet suburban cul-de-sac was supposed to be my sanctuary. At 34, after a decade clawing my way up in the cutthroat world of interior design, every detail screamed survival. The calming denim blue walls that drank morning light and held it till dusk. Wide plank, white oak floors warm under bare feet. Quartz countertops cool and unforgiving. I'd chosen it all like a surgeon, each clean line a middle finger to the chaos I'd escaped. But this perfect neighborhood was ruled by the homeowners association my own mother presided over like a petty dictator. She'd spent years preaching community standards while fining neighbors for grass half an inch too long or flags the wrong size. Now she and Richard had sold their place, the closing delayed, and she called 3 weeks ago with that fake cheerful voice. Lena, honey, we're in a pickle. Your house is so lovely, so much room. As HOA president, I can make the guest policy flexible, just family helping family. I cut her off cold, short stays only. Suitcases, nothing more. I repeated it twice like a mantra. The days before they arrived hummed with low-grade dread. I moved my things to the guest room, locked my office, hid personal papers. The house felt sacred that last quiet morning. Sun slanting through spotless windows, fresh paint scent lingering. I sat in the breakfast nook with black coffee, savoring the silence I'd earned. Then the beast turned the corner. A 20-foot rental truck, orange logo blazing, diesel engine growling like doom. It backed inexorably into my driveway, backup beeper screeching, hydraulic lift whining as the ramp slammed down. My coffee went cold in my hands. Short stays only, I'd said. This was an occupation. 2 beefy movers started unloading. First, the monstrous puke-brown lazy boy, fabric worn thin from years of Richard's lazy throne sessions. Then the 70-inch glossy TV monster. 12 kitchen boxes, dusty lamps, scarred end tables ringed with wet glass stains. Each item crossing my threshold felt like a deliberate desecration of the minimalist space I'd curated. Richard stood on my manicured lawn, cigarette dangling, barking orders without lifting a finger. Watch the corners. My mother flitted nervously, carrying tiny knickknacks, refusing to meet my eyes. She knew this was betrayal. When the movers headed upstairs with the first bedroom box, I finally spoke. Guest rooms at the back. Richard exhaled smoke that I swear dissolved my fresh paint. That smirk again. Nah, the wife needs her space. We'll take the big one at the front. My master bedroom, the one with the rainfall shower and walk-in closet, I designed as my private fortress. I'd already moved out as a courtesy, but his tone made it clear he was taking, not accepting. Richard, the agreement, he cut me off. Agreements changed. Master bedroom, boys. My mother wrung her hands. Oh, Lena, please don't make a scene. His back's bad. It's only temporary. Temporary. The lie hung in the air as movers stomped up my oak stairs with his ugly furniture. By nightfall, the house I loved was unrecognizable. The living room, once calm denim blue and tasteful art, now dominated by the hulking TV and that obscene recliner. The air reeked of cigarettes and greasy pizza. Empty boxes towered in my garage like cardboard evidence of premeditated deceit. The television blared cable news at full volume. Richard didn't watch it. He inhabited it. I tried cooking in my own kitchen and felt like an intruder. Mother had already crammed her chipped mugs next to my ceramic set, plastic utensils ruining my bamboo dividers. Richard, glued to the screen, grunted without looking up. Hey, Lena. Beer. Not a question. The 16-year-old inside me wanted to flee, but the 34-year-old homeowner whose name was on the deed stood firm. The fridge is in the same place it was an hour ago. He finally turned, irritation flashing. Mother scurried over. I'll get it, honey. She shot me a pleading look. Don't provoke him. That night, I lay in the guest room, listening to his snoring from my former bedroom, the TV droning, faint smoke in the air. The nightmare hadn't knocked. It had moved in and claimed the throne. But I wasn't helpless. The next morning, I opened a password-protected file on my laptop. House log, October 28th, 9:42 p.m. Richard slammed refrigerator door hard enough to rattle bottles and jump a vase. Call my food rabbit food. Mother present did not intervene. Then I added the HOA twist that made my blood boil. Note, Mother, as HOA president, ignored the very no smoking in common areas covenant she wrote last month. Each entry a brick. He thought he was eroding me. He had no idea I was building a fortress of proof. And every time she cited another absurd rule, the HOA requires visible compliance, Lena, I smiled inside. The woman who fined neighbors for flower choices was now defiling my sanctuary while preaching community standards. The game had changed. I wasn't surviving. I was preparing to burn the whole ridiculous HOA empire down with her inside it. The weekend brought no relief, only acceleration. I'd planned a quiet Saturday in my office, catching up on blueprints. Instead, pickup trucks rumbled into my driveway, and loud male laughter shattered the cul-de-sac peace. I peeked out, Richard on my front porch holding court with 3 beefy clones in faded tees, each clutching cheap beer. They'd commandeered my elegant wicker set. One had dirty boots on my delicate coffee table. Their crude jokes echoed like a low-budget beer commercial. My quiet neighborhood, ruled by my mother's precious HOA covenants, now looked like a frat house. I imagined neighbors peeking through blinds, already texting the group chat she controlled. I found Mother in the kitchen humming while wiping an already clean counter. Who are they? She barely glanced. Just some of Richard's old buddies from the plant. Wanted to see the new place. My new place. This isn't a bar, Mom. I didn't agree to this. She sighed the long-suffering martyr sigh. Lena, don't be dramatic. He needs to relax. He's under so much stress with the move. And as HOA president, I have to keep relations friendly. Friendly. Translation. She was using my house as unofficial HOA headquarters. The noise was inescapable. Beer cans hissing, spitting into my flower beds, the very bed she'd once fined Mrs. Henderson for overwatering. I retreated to my office and typed. October 31st, 2:15 p.m. Richard invited 3 friends without consent. Drinking and disruptive on front porch. Mother cited community relations as excuse. The true cost hit days later. My power bill doubled. Water bill tripled. The giant TV ran dawn to midnight. Lights left blazing. Mother's marathon showers in my former in soot. They were draining me literally. Then the gas card discovery. My company card, strictly for client travel, vanished from my wallet. Next morning it was back, but the statement showed 4 charges at stations near Richard's old haunts. He'd borrowed it, used it, replaced it, assuming I was too distracted to notice. Not theft, he claimed later. HOA business, probably. That was the moment hesitation died. My log was good, but I needed irrefutable proof. I printed utility spikes highlighted in yellow, gas card fraud circled in red, scanned everything to a secure cloud. Then I became a spy in my own home. Phone on silent. I photographed muddy boot scuffs on walls, cigarette burns on the deck railing, thermostat cranked to 78 degrees, violating the very energy efficiency guideline Mother had pushed last quarter. Each photo time-stamped and uploaded. But behavior needed capturing. That night, after they slept, I installed 3 nanny cams disguised as everyday objects. USB charger in the kitchen with perfect living room view, smoke detector in the upstairs hall, digital clock on the living room shelf. Expensive, but the best investment I'd ever made. The cameras became my silent allies. Every night, I locked my office and reviewed footage like a grim ritual. Richard pacing, muttering. Mother fetching beers, fluffing pillows in practiced subservience. I watched him wipe greasy fingers on my custom sofa, kick bare feet onto my walnut coffee table. Each clip labeled and saved. The HOA irony burned. The woman who'd once cited me in a board meeting for non-compliant holiday lights was now letting her husband turn my home into the very eyesore she'd fine others for. The breaking point came over something small yet sacred, my work. I'd left architectural blueprints on the dining table for an hour while on a client call. When I returned, a dark wet ring warped the expensive paper. A can of cheap beer sat beside it, condensation dripping. I carried the damaged roll and the can into the living room. Richard lounged in his throne, glued to a game show. Mother knitted on the sofa edge. "Richard," I said, voice unnervingly calm. This was on the dining table. I unfurled the stain. "These are for a client." "Ruined." He barely glanced. "Print another. This isn't a memo. It's a $100 sheet, and you damaged my property and my home." Mother jumped in. "Elena, it was an accident, right, Richard?" He mumbled agreement, eyes never leaving the screen. I pressed. "An accident is tripping. This is carelessness. Disrespect." Mother's face hardened. "For heaven's sake, let it go. It's a piece of paper. You're always looking for something to be upset about." I stared dumbfounded. He's treated my home like a frat house for 3 weeks. Stolen from me. Bills skyrocketed. Damaged my career tools. And you're saying I'm a problem? The word stolen hung. Richard turned, dark look flashing. Mother snapped defensive. "He borrowed the gas card because his wallet was in his other jacket. Paid you back with cash on the counter." There was no cash. The lie was instant and pathetic. "That's enough," I whispered. "This isn't working. You both need to leave." The agreement was short stays only. Mother's face contorted into righteous fury. "Selfish. You've always been selfish. This beautiful house all to yourself, and you can't share with family? We have nowhere else, and you want to throw us out over a piece of paper." Her words were designed to trigger lifetime guilt, but the cameras and logs had built a shield. "This isn't sharing. This is an invasion. My house. Your welcome is revoked." She stepped closer, eyes blazing. "Well, maybe if you can't handle it, you should be the one to leave. This is my home too now." The words landed like a slap. She'd just declared squatters' rights, HOA president style. In her mind, her need plus her title granted ownership. I looked at the deed with only my name, the walls I'd painted, floors I'd installed. Then back at her triumphant face and Richard's faint smug smile. A chilling calm settled. The last tether snapped. Without a word, I turned, carried the ruined blueprint to my office, and closed the door. The USB charger cam had recorded every second in crystal clarity. She thought she'd won. She just handed me the final nail for her own ridiculous coffin. A week after Mother's declaration, the house settled into a Cold War. I moved through common areas like a ghost, responses clipped, meals in my office, silence weaponized. They took my quiet as victory, a sulking child properly chastised. They had no clue my silence was a blade being sharpened. The final line crossed on a Friday night. It started with the rumble of more pickup trucks. 5 board member clones this time. Volume tripled. Cheap beer and greasy wing stench seeped onto my office door. I had a client deadline. The printer was in the living room, now functioning as their makeshift HOA sports bar. I stepped into the chaos. Big screen blasting basketball. Mother shuttling plates with a brittle hostess smile. Richard held court from the recliner like a pleather king. As I passed the cluster for the printer, a sudden lull let one voice cut through. Dave, thick-necked and cruel. "Hey, Rich, is that the little Spitfire you told us about? The one you had to straighten out back when she was a teenager?" The air crackled. Chuckles rippled. They were talking about me. About that kitchen blow at 16. Richard had turned my deepest humiliation into a bar story for his HOA buddies. "Yeah, That's her, he chuckled smugly. How to teach her some respect. She's a lot quieter now, ain't she? More laughter. My blood turned to ice then fire. Publicly, my trauma was entertainment. My first instinct screamed to explode, but the cameras were rolling. A screaming match would let Mother paint me as the dramatic one again. So I did nothing. I pressed print, gathered warm pages, and walked back through their circle with a blank mask. Their laughter faltered. My composure unnerved them. I closed my office door. The latch clicked like a gun cocking. The rage cooled into something diamond-hard and purposeful. He thought public humiliation was checkmate. He'd actually unleashed me. The evidence phase was complete. This was now a hunt. Next morning, I photographed the aftermath, congealed wings, bottle caps ground into my rug, then called the shark real estate attorney whose name a colleague had given me. Evelyn Davies, late 50s, sharp eyes, office overlooking the skyline like a power statement. I laid out everything on her mahogany desk. Utility spikes, gas card fraud, time-stamped photos, the ruined blueprint. Excellent documentation, she said, tone shifting from routine to predatory. Then I opened my laptop and played the clips. First, Mother's face twisting as she spat. If you can't handle it, you should be the one to leave. This is my home too now. Evelyn leaned forward. She said, that in your house? Second clip. The party audio crystal clear. Dave jeer, Richard's bragging about teaching me respect. Evelyn's face hardened. He's bragging about a past assault in your home as intimidation. This is no longer a simple eviction. This is harassment. She outlined the plan. We'd petition for an emergency temporary restraining order ex parte. No notice to them. Given the implied threat, any judge would grant it, ordering Richard to vacate immediately and stay 100 yards from me. Simultaneously serve the 30-day notice to quit as bait. His temper was the weakness. The moment he violated the order, shouting, lunging, tearing paper, the deputy already on site would arrest him on the spot. I added one more layer. A friend in corporate security would provide a sworn affidavit analyzing the footage as professional third-party evidence. Evelyn smiled thin and dangerous. Do it. The more polished, the faster the judge signs. By Monday, the affidavit was ready. Tuesday, the petition filed. Wednesday, the order granted and signed by Judge Miller. Deputy scheduled for 4 p.m. I felt strangely calm. For a month, I'd been prey. Now I was the architect of the trap. Wednesday morning, I received Evelyn's text. TRO granted. Deputy, at 4 p.m. Good luck. I deleted it and went about my day. Mother was at the church thrift store. Richard in his recliner, as usual. The documents waited in a crisp manila envelope in my office. The official court-stamped restraining order and the bait notice. At 3:55, I took clear packing tape and the notice outside. I taped it square in the center of my front door at eye level. Stark, official, impossible to miss. Stepped back inside, left the door unlocked, positioned myself across the living room near the kitchen archway. Phone in hand, camera app ready, finger hovering on record. At 4:02 a.m., car door slammed, authoritative knock. Richard bellowed from his chair, "Get the door." I didn't move. Second knock louder. He heaved himself up, lumbered over, yanked the door open. Uniformed deputy stood there. "Richard Miller? You've been served." Papers handed over. Richard's eyes dropped to the court seal, confusion blooming, then landed on the notice I'd taped. He ripped it down, scanned the first line, notice to quit and deliver possession. Confusion curdled into pure rage. He slammed the door, papers crunching in his fist, face mottled red. He spotted me across the room, phone now openly recording. "What the hell is this?" he roared, waving the torn notice. "You think you can kick me out of my own home?" My voice stayed ice calm. "It's a formal notice to vacate, Richard. 30 days. His composure gasoline on fire. 30 days? I'll give you 30 seconds to rip that crap up and apologize to your mother. He tore the notice again, pieces fluttering to my oak floor. After everything we've done for you, he was now 15 feet away, body radiating menace. The camera caught every frame. "You have to leave," I said evenly. That was the trigger. With a guttural roar, he lunged, hands up like claws, face contorted. "I'll show you who has to leave." He closed half the distance in a heartbeat, but never reached me. The front door swung open again. The deputy and his partner stepped inside. "Sir, put your hands behind your back." Richard froze mid-lunge, shock replacing fury. "This is a family dispute. You have no right." The deputy cut him off calmly. "This is not your house, sir. And you are in direct violation of a court-ordered temporary restraining order I served you 90 seconds ago. Your actions constitute immediate arrest." The color drained from Richard's face. He looked at me, saw the phone, finally understood he'd walked into a trap. The second deputy snapped handcuffs. The metallic click was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. The man who'd terrorized me as a teen, bragged about it as an adult, invaded my sanctuary, and tried to claim it under HOA pretense, was being arrested in my living room. His alpha bluster stripped away, leaving a pathetic middle-aged man facing consequences. Just as the deputies led a shell-shocked Richard across my porch, Mother's car pulled into the driveway. She stepped out with a bag of groceries, cheerful smile from her thrift store morning. The smile froze, shattered. Eyes widened in horror as she saw her husband shoved into the squad car. The grocery bag slipped. Eggs exploded across the concrete in a yellow sunburst of disbelief. "Richard!" she shrieked, rushing forward. "What's happening? What did you do?" The deputy held up a hand. "Ma'am, stay back. Your husband is under arrest for violating a domestic violence restraining order." Her head whipped toward me, standing in the open doorway, phone still recording. In an instant, shock coalesced into incandescent rage aimed straight at me. "You!" she screamed, voice cracking. "This is your fault. What did you tell them?" I said nothing. Just stood there, silent sentinel. The deputy closed the car door. Mother beat her fists against the window as the patrol car backed out and drove away, leaving ringing silence in the cul-de-sac. She marched toward me, shoulders heaving. "How could you do this to him? To your own family? He's a good man." She tried pushing past me into the house as if she could rewind time. I didn't move. My body became the barricade. I looked her dead in the eye and saw a stranger. "Short stays only," I said quietly, words cutting through her sobs like glass. That was the rule. She stared, uncomprehending. I repeated, each syllable chilling. "Short stays only. I gave you a boundary. You," and he trampled it. "From the moment you arrived, you let him disrespect me, steal from me, intimidate me in my own home. You chose him. Over and over." Her face crumpled. The anger that had worked for decades suddenly failed. This cold, immovable woman wasn't the daughter she knew. "This is my house," I continued, voice hard as my quartz counters. "Mine, not his, not yours." The finality broke through her hysteria. The fight drained, replaced by dawning horror. I stepped back, opened the door wider, and pointed. There, lined neatly against the wall, 2 large suitcases and 3 sealed cardboard boxes. I packed them that morning while Richard watched game shows and she sorted thrift junk. I'd folded his ugly shirts, bagged her toiletries, removed their toothbrushes from my bathroom. The act had been strangely liberating. Mother's eyes followed my finger. She saw the luggage. A choked gasp escaped. She finally understood this wasn't spontaneous. It was calculated. She'd thought she was playing emotional chess with a pawn. She'd faced a queen who'd set up checkmate for weeks. "You packed our things," she whispered, defeat raw. For 18 years since Richard entered our lives, I'd retreated. Into rooms, books, career, making myself smaller to accommodate their oversized destruction. Not today. I stood in the doorway of the fortress I'd built and took 0 steps back. She bent stiffly, picked up the larger suitcase handle. Wheels rattled a mournful rhythm on my walkway. She made 2 more trips for the rest. Each journey from my door to the curb was pure walk of shame. On the final trip, she paused at the property edge, face ruined by tears, and looked back. She seemed to want one last plea or curse, but nothing came. We were strangers now, separated by every betrayal she'd sanctioned with silence. A car she called pulled up. She loaded the bags, climbed in, and was gone. I closed the door. The deadbolt click was thunderous, the period at the end of a long, painful sentence. I leaned against the solid wood and just breathed. The silence that rushed and wasn't empty. It was rich, textured mine. No blaring TV. No heavy snoring. No cigarette haze. I opened my eyes and surveyed the battlefield. Pizza boxes, empty beer bottles, torn notice scraps on the floor. It was aftermath, not menace. Slowly I reclaimed my space. Picked up the paper shreds, dropped them in trash. Gathered clinking bottles. Swept every trace of their detritus into a garbage bag. Lowered the thermostat from 78 degrees back to my comfortable 68 degrees. The AC kicked on with cool, purifying breath. I opened every window, letting crisp autumn air chase out the last of their scent. I walked in the master bedroom, my bedroom again. The bed unmade, sheets twisted from Richard's weight, ugly dresser against my wall like a monument to invasion. It would all be removed. I stood in the center and looked out at the quiet tree-lined street. The cul-de-sac peaceful, late afternoon sun casting long shadows on manicured lawns. Neighbors probably inside, living normal lives, unaware of the war, just one behind my door. For a month this house had been prison, anxiety, humiliation. Now they were gone. Richard in a jail cell. Mother somewhere else. Her HOA president reputation in tatters after the arrest spectacle. I was home. The battle over. Scars would fade. The quiet was all mine. But the story wasn't finished for the neighborhood. Word spread fast in our rule-obsessed cul-de-sac. The same woman who'd fined Mrs. Henderson for one extra Christmas light had been arrested in her own daughter's living room for domestic violence and HOA-related harassment. Board members who'd laughed at Richard's stories suddenly resigned or distanced themselves. Petitions circulated demanding new leadership. The woman who'd preached community standards while violating every one in my house became the punchline of every backyard barbecue. I smiled every time I heard whispers of the mailbox. Did you see the HOA Karen get taken down? Justice wasn't just personal. It was public, delicious, and long overdue. In the weeks that followed, the house slowly became mine again. I hired a cleaning crew and a furniture removal service. The ugly recliner, giant TV, scarred tables, all hauled away. I repainted the master bedroom in fresh denim blue, reinstalled my rainfall shower, restored every clean line. The blueprints I'd lost were reprinted at client expense. The project deadline met with a story that made my client laugh and say, "Never mess with a designer who owns her own home." But the real satisfaction came from watching the HOA empire my mother had ruled crumble from within. The arrest video, my phone footage, somehow leaked to the neighborhood group chat. I have no idea how. Suddenly the covenants she'd weaponized for years were turned against her. Neighbors filed complaints about her own yard, her own parking violations during the temporary stay. The board called an emergency meeting she couldn't attend because the restraining order kept her 100 yards from me, and therefore from any property within that radius in our tight cul-de-sac. She was forced to resign as president in disgrace. The new board immediately voted to soften some of the most ridiculous rules she'd championed. Grass could be 3.5 inches, flags up to 4 by 6, holiday lights allowed until January 15th. Small victories, but each one felt like a middle finger to the woman who'd tried to own my life under the guise of community. Richard pleaded down to a misdemeanor, but still got 30 days plus anger management classes. Mother tried one last pathetic call from a friend's phone, blocked. Then a letter begging me to think of family. I shredded it without reading past the first line. Short stays only had been my boundary. She'd chosen to trample it. Now she lived with the consequences. I started seeing neighbors differently. Mrs. Henderson, the one mother had fined mercilessly, brought over homemade cookies and whispered, "We all saw the truck. We all knew something was wrong. Thank you for standing up." For the first time, the cul-de-sac felt like a real community, not a police state. I hosted my own small gathering. No beer, no blaring TV, just good food and honest conversation. No one mentioned covenants. We talked about life. Looking back, the whole ordeal was almost poetic in its absurdity. The woman who spent years enforcing petty rules on everyone else had broken every single one inside my walls while claiming the house as hers. The man who once hit a teenage girl to teach respect had bragged about it to his buddies and ended up in handcuffs for the exact same reason. And I, the daughter they'd both underestimated, had used their arrogance, their temper, their lies against them with cold patience and hidden cameras. The lesson was simple yet brutal. Boundaries matter. Documentation is power. And when someone who preaches community standards uses those standards as a weapon to invade your home and your peace, the sweetest justice is watching them lose everything they claim to protect. Today, the moving truck is long gone. My driveway is clear. My house is quiet, beautiful mine. The morning light still pours through the windows exactly as I designed it. I sit in the breakfast nook with black coffee, barefoot on warm oak floors, and I breathe. No snoring. No cigarette smoke. No whispered threats about HOA fines. Just peace. The kind you earn when you finally stop retreating and start enforcing the only rule that ever mattered. This is my house. Short stays only. And when the stay is over, the Karen leaves, whether she wants to or not. If you're in an HOA nightmare, if a toxic relative is overstaying their welcome, if someone in power thinks your home belongs to them, remember this. Document everything. Stay calm. Build the case. Then watch them walk straight into the trap they built themselves. Justice isn't loud. It's quiet, precise, and devastatingly satisfying. Thank you for listening to my story. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from, and have you ever battled an HOA Karen? If this gave you the haha I told you so satisfaction it gave me, smash that like button and subscribe. It really helps these stories reach more people who need to hear them. Stay strong out there. Your house is yours. Never let anyone, family, neighbor, or power-tripping president forget it.